everybody.
Hi, guys. Well, from gorgeous Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up on the show today, Dan, the Christians have almost gotten their wildest dream fulfilled. Roe v. Wade is on the chopping block.
The United States Supreme Court was and is the end game for the Christian right.
Yep.
They done did it. They done packed their court, and we're gonna find out soon.
Yeah.
Exactly how bad it all is.
Yeah.
We've already found out it's pretty bad. So anyway, we're going to be talking about that later on in the show.
Yeah.
No spoilers. It's all going to be great, you guys.
Oh my God, no kidding. Dan,
But before that, tell what? Talk to me.
I've got a story, Dan, coming to us from New South Wales in Australia.
Yes.
Dan.
Down under.
Yeah. And this involves an incident that happened at a high school earlier this month where a 14-year-old boy stabbed a 16-year-old boy with a quote-unquote religious knife.
Oh.
Which is amazing. That they're just like,
is
it's
this
a
boy, can I ask,
knife.
is this boy of Indian descent?
It's possible.
Because the only religion I know that carries knives at this point are the Sikhs.
Yeah, that's true. And that is, he is a Sikh, and he was carrying a kirpan. Is that how you say it? Kirpan?
I think you nailed it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I know how to say it, but I'm not going to tell you.
Anyway, it's a type of ceremonial knife that's carried by members of the Sikh community, and it's like this really important thing. Like, they always carry knives. It's supposed to be like a symbol of their willingness to defend, or stand against injustice. Right. And many Sikhs, or Sikhs, I guess, don't ever remove them from their person.
Right.
Including they will sleep with a knife, which does not seem safe. Like, none of this.
It's in a sheath. It's fine.
Yeah, well, whatever. This kid, however, unsheathed it. And now officials are like, oh, wait, why did we let this loophole happen, right?
Wait, did we allow knives? Are we allowing knives in the schools?
Apparently, the local laws allow a person to carry a knife in public, provided that they have a reasonable excuse.
You need an excuse, not a reason, an excuse.
An excuse, but it must be reasonable.
Right.
And so they're actually going to be looking into this, and they're moving quickly. Officials over the schools are just out and out being like, nope, we don't care that there's a loophole currently. We're saying you cannot bring knives onto school grounds. And the Sikh community, as one would expect, is outraged.
They're like, we got three things: we don't cut our hair, we wear a turban, and we carry a knife. That's the only three things we ask. Is that so much to ask?
The leaders of the community have actually indicated they're willing to compromise on this a little bit, right? Like, they're willing to talk about maybe the size of the knife, or
you can have half a letter opener.
Like, why not just cardboard, right?
Yeah,
like, why does it have to be a real knife?
It's
right, like
ceremonial or bust.
Right. Or it has to be kept in a spherical or object, an orb. It must be inside an orb. The plastic orb
Like a hamster wheel? What are you talking about?
Yes, something along those lines. Where you put the knife, has to be enclosed in something with no sharp edges, no points whatsoever, which is why I went for a sphere.
Okay.
Right, like I was like, well, it could be in a cube, but it's like,
those still have pointy parts.
You could still do some damage with the cube. So let's just make it perfectly safe. Why wouldn't that work?
I just love the idea that, like, the only talking point that the Sikhs actually have going for them is, don't worry, we won't do anything with the knives. And then this one kid just ruins it for every fucking buddy.
Yeah. Well, this like top Sikh guy that they talked to, he was like, I mean, there are like bar fights across this entire country every night of the week, and you're not like outlawing alcohol, so like this, and basically making that point of like, this is like the one time this has happened, and you're gonna respond to it like this. And I would just say, like maybe it's not a great idea to have every 14-year-old kid who's sick, I guess, carrying a knife around school. Yeah. It's just not a good idea.
You know what, Six? Maybe children don't need to be a part of the whole knife thing.
Well, it's once you're baptized. Once you're baptized, you have to wear the damn thing.
Well, I'm just saying, like, maybe there can be a new rule where it's only adults who carry knives. Why? How about that? I feel much better about that. Still don't feel great about it. Still don't love armed people walking around. Right. But better if they're grown up.
Oh, I say better a knife than... I mean, I'm glad they're not like, no, this is our ceremonial pistol.
Right.
Right.
No, that would definitely be an American religion that would come up with that one. Oh, good Lord. Well, speaking of American, boy, it doesn't get much more American than this.
Oh, boy.
It has recently come to light, thanks to ABC News and some report. Well, okay, so here's what happened. Apparently, a pastor who's a bigwig, the lead pastor at a church called Bethany Church in Louisiana, out of Baton Rouge. He recently posted an apology on his Facebook page. Talking about how a bunch of people may have experienced some, quote, painful experiences in their young leaders training.
Okay.
Now, the young leaders training in question ran from 2005 to 2013 and was called the 220I Leadership Program. 220I is a reference to a scripture that you don't need to know anything about because it's stupid. Anyway, here's the deal. This was meant to train young people to become ministers. So, I don't know. You can go ahead and imagine what you would put in ministerial training for young folk. I can think of a bunch of things that I would think would be important. None of those things. Now, by the way, these young people are paying $5,000 tuition to come to this thing.
Ooh.
And that doesn't include room and board.
Okay.
So this was not cheap. Here's what I wouldn't imagine putting into the training for a ministerial career.
Okay.
How about boot camp, where people have to run and like swim and tread water until they vomit for hours on end?
They're training. Sounds like they're training Christian terrorists is what they're doing.
It gets worse, and it sounds like they are Christian terrorists.
Oh,
They're not
really?
even trying to train Christian terrorists. They were wildly abusive. If any of the kids seemed like they might be gay, they got tormented.
No.
Any black, God help you, if you are a black young person going to try and learn to be a minister from Southern white people. Oh my God. It's a terrible thing. first of all, young black folks were put in the worst in the worst dormitories, obviously.
Oh my God.
The leaders apparently, the trainers apparently, were very liberal with their use of the N-word. They would
What?
It was honestly, it like the more I read about it, the more abusive it became. It's horrifying. The women were trained, you know, obviously gay hatred was one of the big points. The men were trained that they had oh my God, I forgot. I knew I was missing something. Fight clubs. They had to fight each other. They were literally made to fist fight with each other. They ended bloodied from these fights because they were supposed to be manly and they were supposed to be awesome. All except the black dudes who were called thugs.
Oh my God.
What do you call guys that make other guys fight each other? It was shocking. And of course the women were all trained to that they weren't allowed to be fat, and like fat shaming was a big deal, slut shaming was a big deal. God help you if they thought that you were LGBT, because they would just torture you.
Oh my
It was
God.
apparently a fucking nightmare. So bad that apparently at least one mother had, like, when she got a call from her kid, went to quote unquote rescue her child from this
Oh my God.
ministerial training.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, when you watch videos of these literal just douchebags, you know, and they're spewing their toxic masculinity in, you know, as though it were Christian, like
in church,
right?
Over the pulpit,
and it's their like, it's like their message to the people this week is some horrible toxic, you know, rant.
Right.
When you see those videos, this actually in that context doesn't surprise me at all, because those assholes would think that they need to be raising up tough, you know, ministers, just like me, you know. We need horrible human beings running the church.
Yeah.
Because like,
You guys are not awful enough. We're going to whip you into shape.
yeah, they don't want a bunch of pansies running congregations.
Right.
You know, they had enough of that, right?
Yeah.
That's the kind of church they grew up in, and it was bullshit. Right?
It's amazing. The stories are horrifying. Like
Christianity
so much
is
worse.
going to hell. Like, it is like, I don't know what's going on. Well, I guess I should say evangelical Christianity is just, they're just out in the wilderness right now. They are lost.
They've lost their goddamn minds is what's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really are. American Christianity on the whole has lost. I mean, you're right that there are some places where it maybe is less of a problem, but like when Mormonism has gone as far afield as it's gone, you know that the shit has hit the fan.
Yeah. I mean, it's in one way it's good, right?
Yeah, well,
Like, I mean, it's introducing a lot of like horribleness into the world currently, right?
It's terrible.
A lot of
like for the people
toxic
experiencing it.
messages, you know. So there's that bad that's going on, but maybe like I don't think toxic environments actually are going to attract tons of people, right?
Right.
They're
Well,
going
I mean,
to be spewing out more people than they would otherwise if they were just kind of nice and, you know, peaceful messages. Like that's not going to push people away to the same degree.
Right.
I
If they
would
cared
hope.
at all about what that Jesus guy actually said.
Yeah, that's
they'd
less
do better.
likely. Yeah, that's less likely to alienate tons of people. So in one way, awesome, right?
Yeah,
I
they're
feel
being
for those
just-
kids, but you know, maybe some
But
of them
how many
won't
of those
actually become ministers now.
Right. Not
Right.
only will most of them not become ministers, but they'll leave the church.
Yeah.
Like so many of them will leave the church. And maybe the few of them will have been into this abusive situation. They'll become the kind of ministers that abuse other people because people pass on their trauma to the next folks.
No, that's true. Yeah.
And then more people will leave because fuck traumatizing church.
Yeah. Ugh. All right.
Spooky though.
Horrible. Dan, I have a new vacation destination.
I don't believe you. Something tells me this is going to go badly.
This is totally bucket list, like, destination, Dan.
Okay.
Saudi Arabia.
Oh yeah. You and I have oft wistfully spoken of our dreams.
It just seems like just a paradise that we would want to go and enjoy. No, it's not.
The lush vegetation.
Oh yeah. I mean, I did
progressive values.
I did find, this was a few years ago, this weird documentary that was like on Amazon Prime or whatever, that was very much produced by the government of Saudi Arabia, and it was like promoting like the natural beauty. And I do have to say, like, if you are somebody who can see beauty in desert landscapes, it does have some beauty to it.
Sure.
Like if that stuff would probably be kind of cool to see. However, the reason that I'm bringing this all up is because Saudi Arabia has removed its Muslims only signs on the highway to Medina.
Oh,
which Medina is a holy city for Islam, and non-Muslims were outright banned. You couldn't go. You were not supposed to go there. And people have been noticing that the street signs are all getting replaced. They used to say Muslims only, and now they're saying haram area. Right, but it's specifically in reference to the what is it? The Prophet's Mosque. Which is so what basically what they're saying is the mosque isn't open to non-Muslims, but the city is.
Interesting.
Right? And this is all, like, seriously, that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman dude, he has this Saudi, it's Vision 2030, and they're looking to diversify their economy. Right. And so they're looking to boost tourism, communications, technology sector, and so this is all kind of, people are speculating that this is kind of signs of things to come. They want to, like, this plan, he wants to open up and let people come, like, for realsies. Now, I don't know how far that extends. They clearly have been watching, like, the United Arab Emirates and just being like, if you just there's a lot of other money opportunity, right? If you just let the world in, but you can still keep the rules clamped down real nice. And then you just look the other way on alcohol. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
So
here's a hot tip for all of our listeners, though.
Yeah.
If you end up in Saudi Arabia and somehow you end up in a place where you're not supposed to be if you're not Muslim, just look them in the eye and say that you're Muslim 3 times.
Is it I'm a Muslim, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Muslim, or is it?
I think so.
It's not like
Allah,
it's
like Beetlejuice. You just become Muslim if you say it 3 times, and then what are they gonna do? I don't know. Something tells me they won't believe you, but I feel like it's worth a shot. Like you might be loopholed in.
That's funny, Dan.
Anyway, well, there you go. I'm still not gonna go to Saudi Arabia anytime soon.
Fucking way. I have no interest. no desire.
Frankly,
no way.
I have interest. Like, I'm interested in the whole planet. I find it interesting, and I would see it, but I don't want to give them any of my money.
You already do.
Well, okay, fair. But I don't want to give them any of my tourist dollars.
Oh, the precious, precious tourism dollars.
Yeah, those will go to somebody else. Anyway, speaking of Muslims, just last Sunday was Eid al-Fitr. I don't know how to actually say that, but
That was good, Dan.
that sounded okay.
I was convinced.
Okay.
Should have just ran with it.
I should have. But that's the big day that marks the end of Ramadan. It's a huge deal. Everybody gets to eat again in the daylight. It's a celebration. And traditionally cool presidents of the United States have a little shindig to sort of mark Eid and let the Muslims of America know that they're not entirely reviled, which is how they mostly feel, I'm sure.
Right.
Anyway, this year, a whole group of Muslim organizations not only didn't attend the White House remarks on Eid, but they held a protest, a counter event.
Oh.
And the reason that they did so is because, well, I'll tell you the name of the counter event, and then you can sort of piece things together. It was called Eid with Palestine, protest of the White House Eid event.
Yeah.
Because, of course, I mean, as of right now, when you and I are talking, Frank, there is a ceasefire in effect.
Yeah.
By the time this goes up to the listener, who knows? I don't know. But this whole time, one Mr. Biden has not said anything of any consequence about this whole thing, at least not publicly.
Yeah, they've been talking a lot about using sort of quiet diplomacy or something along those lines, like working behind the scenes.
Yeah, but we don't get to see that.
No,
and frankly,
and we must see everything.
Well, but atrocities are happening.
Pixar didn't happen, right?
Well, kinda. In world politics, you kind of have to let us know. Like you kind of have to, when you're the leader of the most powerful country in the world, you got to lead. You got to show people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That
was a tricky needle to thread for him, though, because the public sentiment is really shifting around on Israel, right, in this country.
I'm saying we need leaders to lead that sentiment, and what he did was nothing, and I don't think that that's a thing.
Well, I think that his impulse would, and it clearly was, to side with Israel. But then you have the base of the party that is siding with the Palestinians, right?
Well,
and so that's what I say. It was a difficult needle for him to thread. I agree with you. He should just come out and do some leading on the whole thing, but it means he pisses off the base. And so that's what he was up to.
Yeah,
right? That's why he was doing
I
quiet
just feel like
diplomacy.
It just felt like cowardice politics, and I don't go in for that shit.
Quiet. He was behind the scenes, Dan.
Cowering behind a couch, quietly, hoping it goes away soon.
Trying really hard not to be derailed off of his agenda.
I think it'll play well. I think, honestly, how he handled it, as appalling as I find it, because I think he needed to speak out against Israel in no uncertain terms.
Yeah.
Because Israel was very clearly at fault and problematic and murderous and genocidal in their actions. But I think that him being quiet and then things just sort of getting resolved quietly, I think it'll actually serve him politically. I just hate it. I just think he was wrong.
Well, there you have it.
I came out strongly. Did you hear that? Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dan.
Yeah.
So we live in sort of the anti-vaxxers world at this moment. They've done a good job of
a vaxxed man walking in an unvaxxed wasteland.
I'm feeling good. I'm vaccinated. I feel great. Yeah. Boy howdy, I went to the supermarket. I didn't wear a mask, Dan.
What?
Did you know that?
I still wear masks in public places.
Why? If CDC says.
I know, but I still feel like I'm sending the signals. I don't know.
Really? See,
I don't want to be mistaken for a Republican, if nothing else.
Well,
I don't wear masks outside.
Huh? Oh yeah. Okay.
But when I go indoors, I do.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that works for me, right? My sentiment is I've been following the official CDC guidelines pretty much since day one.
Yeah.
Right? I've been and as they've adjusted, I've adjusted. And so they're saying I'm that if you're fully vaccinated, you can just go back to basically normal.
Do whatever you want.
I'm like, oh, okay. It felt fucking weird. And I did feel like a little bit of a douchebag, strutting around the Harmons downtown where at first it was like everybody was masked. Right.
Yeah.
And then we started to sort of, it was clear there were groups of people that were not masked. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm following the science on this one. There's like I'm protected. I supposedly am not a very viable vector for spreading it. Until I hear that there's like some crazy variant in the community that the vaccine's not super effective for. I'm just sorry, guys. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I'm following that. And it feels great. My face, my around the mouth region, it feels fresh and not sweaty. Okay. Like I hated wearing a mask. I did it.
Is there a story in here at all, or are we just talking about masks?
No, I'm sorry. I'm rambling. Maybe I'm a little tired. I don't know what the deal is, but the study recently looked at where the anti-vax conspiracies are coming from.
Okay.
And they did so by analyzing 812,000 posts extracted from Facebook and Twitter over a 6-week period in February and March.
Wow.
And they looked into the data and they found that there are basically 12 people who are spreading all of the anti-vax conspiracies.
I've seen that, the dirty dozen.
The disinformation dozen. And they now are really trying to use this data and information to really encourage Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and Twitter to deplatform these people. And they've started they've made some headway. They've gotten a couple people deplatformed. They've gotten a couple people sort of largely sort of boxed in and silenced somehow. And then there are the rest of them that are still just spreading so much disinformation about the vaccines.
Right.
And it's really remarkable to me, though. And it makes sense. I don't think it's like shocking to anybody that it's basically just this small group of anti-vaxxers, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr., of course.
Right.
And there's some other names on here that some people might recognize. Ben Tapper. That sounds familiar for some reason. Kevin Jenkins. Anyway, but I'm not going to list all the names. But like, this is, thank God, right, that like people are actively working on this. But it's so disheartening. Right?
It is.
This is where we're at. And the thing that they're also pointing out here is that none of these people have any background or training or education that would suggest that they know a thing about vaccines, right? And in addition to that, many of them are also in a position to make money off of promoting anti-vax, right?
Of course
they
are.
And it's just like, oh man, this fucking like the way this last year has gone has been so hard to have the curtains just pulled back on like what our society has become, where we're at. And I get your impulse, Dan, to not want to be confused as a or misidentified as a Republican, right? Right. I honestly think that the anti-vaxxers should now start wearing, because it's like you cannot wear, you don't have to wear a mask if you have been vaccinated, but you're supposed to wear a mask, right? In theory, right? If you're not vaccinated. So I think they should be wearing masks as their new badge of honor. Right. Right. As like, how else are they going to own the libtards? Right.
That's
if
right.
we're all like joining them and not wearing masks, they need to like carve out their different little, well, now we need to wear masks.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep wearing masks. But if anybody ever asks me about it, I'm going to be like, no, man, I'm just doing it to own the libs. This is how we show them.
Yeah. I want
now
I know it's not going to happen, but I need this to happen.
They can't tell me what to do.
Because if anything, like, just this last year just proved how irrational and how stupid people can be on how they have their group identities sort of
totally
playing out and defined for them and everything.
Yeah, it's insane. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about, speaking of science and how science has helped us. There's some interesting news. There was a new research paper published in Sociology of Religion, which is a publication written by a guy named John H. Evans, professor at UC San Diego, who looked at, if you ask the Ken Hams of the world, if you ask, the religious people of the world, why, when kids go to college, more of them, when religious kids go to college, fewer religious kids leave than enter. Right. Most of them will say, well, it's because they go to these science classes and they're taught a whole bunch of lies in science class, and then they believe that, and then they don't believe in God anymore. Well, according to this paper, it turns out that is not true at all. This paper looked at the course load, the classes that different students took when they left after it looked at their transcript after they left college. And the discovery was interesting. It is kind of that science is leading kids out of church or out of religion. But it's not because of what they're taught, or rather it's not because of the facts that they're taught. It's because it has nothing to do with the specific with the specific classes. It's not biology class that does it. It's not
right. It's not
whatever.
Being taught evolution.
Right. The thing that's doing it is being taught how to actually think critically, how to think logically. So these kids are coming into these classes and are actually being taught for the very first time how to ask more salient questions and how to really dive into the inquiry itself.
Right. Okay.
And so really it's just the teaching of inquiry, not the content, that is what's leading kids out of religion, as they would have been able to tell if they had literally just asked any of us. We knew. You could just ask us. We could have told you. But I'm glad that there's a study. I'm glad that somebody actually looked into it in a real way. But yeah, I could have told you that.
Really?
You don't think that? You didn't always assume that
it was being taught how to just free think and
just
and how to think more profoundly about things and to ask critical questions and
being
think
challenged
critically
to do so.
Yeah,
rather than being told the opposite.
No, I take your point. Yeah, I probably would have been able to get there, but I don't know.
But
I mean, it's clear there are just certain fields, there are certain courses of study in university that tend not to pull people out of religion, where there are plenty of religious people on the other side.
Sure.
Right? Plenty of things that you can study in college. Becoming a school teacher, for example, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of methodology that you're being taught. There's a lot of, information and da-da-da-da-da, but not necessarily on the other side of it, because, just look at school teachers in general, right? No, there are just plenty of religious ones.
Right.
Right?
Too many.
If you look at maybe, I don't know, physics,
yeah.
Right? Or some of the hard sciences, right? Probably not producing, at the other side of it, there's probably not that many super religious people, right, involved. And so yeah, it's clear that it's not university and it's not just education, right, that's doing it. But I'm sure that Christians are still afraid of or at least really conservative Christians are still afraid of education itself.
They should be. It will actually teach, there is a very real danger that going to college will actually teach kids how to, think.
It just seems that there are plenty of, I don't know. I don't think it's college itself, right? Because I've known far too many people who've been to college and graduated from college who didn't learn to think at all.
Well, that's true.
Right.
I've met them too.
And I think it's the corners of the university that they're in, right? It's the different colleges that they're in.
Well, some people are just determined not to learn to think well. Some people like the way that they were raised and the way that they were taught to examine the world, and they're determined not to be poisoned by.
Yeah, that's true. But I do think that there are a lot fewer of those people who make it through the hard sciences.
Yes, agreed.
Right. That actually they might go into it with that. But
I will say that the theater department did very little to dissuade people from their faith.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Film.
Yeah.
Right. Film my film studies. Yeah, it's fine. Right.
Anyway, listen. Hey, what did you guys study in college? Is that where you lost your faith? Write to us. podcast@thankgodimatheist.com and tell us what you think.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442. Stick around. There's more show coming up. Hey, Dan.
Yes?
It's that time of the show where we get to listen to some crazy right-wing lunatic.
We get to listen to some dingbat with spouting their nonsense. Oh, man. Yeah. So this is Lance Wallnow, who we play a lot of people who profess themselves to be prophets. Mm-hmm. He's one of them. He's a prophet. And when you're an American prophet these days, what you did a year ago was prophesy for sure that Donald Trump was going to be president at this time this year. And then
he still is, Dan. You're not paying attention.
I know. Like, anyway, he's going to tell us all about COVID and the health restrictions. Just try to follow. Just try to follow along, and we'll see where we all end up.
Folks, we've been living in a socialist era that was competing with America up until the time that Donald Trump was, in my opinion, robbed of his reelection. And at that moment, the mask came off. And you see with a vengeance what a part of America really has wanted all along, which is the deconstruction of the world the way you know it, because they know better than you how you're supposed to live, how you're supposed to eat, how distant you are from other people, what you put on your face like a mask, when you get vaccinated, whether you walk around with a passport and some kind of a digital device that tracks you. What's coming on the horizon, if not resisted, is the end time scenario you've read about when you were a child and wondered about as you saw technology growing. The question is, and only here in the underground can we do it. The question is, to what degree can the church become a mighty force for God to push back on the powers of darkness, the gates of hell?
Oh, so by the way, when he says this can only happen in the underground, he's not talking about some concept. He's talking about his show. It's called The Underground. Like, only his show can make the world a better place by resisting the nefarious forces of question mark that are coming to get your question mark by means of, it's like a Mad Lib that he didn't fill in anything. He just said the word socialism. He said,
yeah, that's all you need.
They're coming to get us.
Yeah.
They think they know better about whether you should wear a mask and whether you should social distance. Yeah. Guess what? They are scientists and they do know better.
Yeah. Sorry.
And also,
if that hurts your little feelings. Right.
And who is a fucking Christian to complain about anyone saying that they know how better than you do how to live your life? Like, on what earth are you not the worst offender on that front of anybody?
And actually literally telling people how to live their lives rather than you can keep doing your thing, just put a mask on. Right. That's like literally all anybody was asking, right?
So, well,
keeping
there were
6 feet apart. Orders. The stay-at-homes were, a little different, but anyway.
But yeah, oh God, it's just amazing. These people,
they're so sensitive.
He literally doesn't even have to say anything. He just uses buzzwords like socialism. Doesn't point out any socialism. Doesn't show you where that is.
Well, it's just clear, Dan.
Yeah,
it's everywhere.
It's obvious.
Masks are socialist.
They're literally.
Please explain that to me, by the way. Right? Because there's literally, I think I saw a T-shirt that said something like that. Right? Keep your socialist masks off my blah blah blah. And it's like, what? How is that so? I don't understand.
Yeah.
How? What? Do you know what socialism is?
No,
they clearly don't. We know
they clearly
that.
Don't. But the other thing is, if masks were socialist, they would have been handed out for free. I would never have had to pay for a fucking mask.
Now, so it turns out the vaccine is socialist.
Great. I'm on board with socialist vaccine.
It is, like, I was thinking about the vaccine. It is it is so foreign to an American, right, to just like walk in somewhere, get a little bit of medical questions asked of you, receive a service, and just be like, you mean I don't have to pay anything?
Yeah.
I was like, where's my insurance form? Right? Like, clearly they're charging my insurance, right? Like, I couldn't believe that I'd somehow missed that message. I'm don't I have to show my insurance?
I'm pretty sure there's a copay. We just start trying to force money at the people who are giving us a shot. End up tipping everybody because we don't know what to do.
I'm pretty sure you're doing this wrong.
Yeah.
Aren't you supposed to be charging me?
Man, you're going to get fired. You need to do this better. Here's $50. I'm pretty sure that is about where it's at. But man, you need to start asking people for money. You are going to get fired, man. I'm worried about you.
Oh, golly.
Well, we had some folks call in to us. We had a couple of callers.
We did, Dan.
So we're gonna play those now. That's fun.
Yeah, this first one.
Okay,
Dan,
yes.
is a caller. I was actually expecting to hear this message. I know that when we kind of try to find like the silver lining, so to speak, of when a religion becomes less harmful in the world, right? When we just mention that, I know that probably isn't a popular opinion with a lot of atheists, right?
Well,
and so we have a response.
Let's hear what he has to say.
And it's a good response. So
this is Mike, and we'll hear what he has to say, and then we'll have our response.
Uh-oh.
Hey, Frank and Dan, this is Mike from Indianapolis. I first of all want to say that I love your show. I've been listening for several years and never miss an episode. I would say, though, that this last episode, even the topic was about the one thing that I do not like about the show, and that was the one titled We're Confused. It seems that every week, mostly Dan, but sometimes Frank as well, and certainly Frank this week, I guess the best analogy would be when a friend of mine, when I had communicated to them that I was going through some depression, asked me to read the Bible because there was some good stuff in there, and she said that I could ignore all of the bad. And my response to her would be that would be like wading through a ton of shit to find. And it does seem that every week, and certainly this week as well, that again, Dan mostly, sometimes Frank, wades into that shit to find a shiny penny. And they come out, or you come out with shit streaming from your nose and mouth, but with a big grin holding up the penny that you found. The bottom line for religions is that they are all based on a lie. And they are all based on an untruth, and that they all, the net impact on the world is negative. So it doesn't matter if they do something that it occasionally is moving in the right direction when the vast majority of everything they do is negative, and therefore their total impact is negative. So from my perspective, you should not celebrate anything that a lie does that could potentially move people in the direction of believing that it is okay to be a part of that lie. So that's my opinion. Differs, I'm sure, from yours. But again, love the show. Take care.
Well, thanks, Mike. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I appreciate you calling in. Yeah. And look, I'm not looking. Here's where I differ from you. I don't think I'm looking for. And by the way, the imagery was especially pleasant, Mike. Thanks for that. I don't think I'm looking for a penny. But here's what I'm looking for. What I'm trying to do is acknowledge the reality that is in this country and in most of the world, religion is still very much in the majority. Religious people are still a fact of our lives, whether we want it to be or not. I agree. Religion is poisonous.
Yeah.
Like we say this, I say that unequivocally. We say it all the time. But better religion is better. You know what I mean? Like still, yes, it's still a dirty glass of water, but I have to live with religious people. And
yeah. And if you decide to put a little squeeze of lemon or lime in that dirty water,
see?
It's so much more palatable.
It'll get us there. We're surrounded, man. We are literally surrounded, and until the day, that glorious day, I'm gonna start writing a spiritual about when everybody leaves religion. But until that day comes, we got to work with what we got.
Yeah, and
I got into a dust up about this a little bit on Facebook just this morning.
Really?
When somebody posted a thing that basically said that every believer is either an idiot or a charlatan. And I was like, no, we can't do that. Look, if we, as the people who hold themselves up as good thinkers, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing we claim we have going for us more than anything, is that, like, we're more honest about the world. We encounter it at face value. We're honest thinkers. If we can't acknowledge that there are brilliant believers and good believers, people who are good people, who are kind, who are geniuses, who are way smarter than I am, like, if we can't acknowledge that exists and that they still believe and that they do good science and they still believe and they do all these other things and they still believe, then we've lost nuance and we're just spouting dogma the same way they are. And I don't see how that's any better. So that's me.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I don't blame anyone for hating religion. Of course you hate religion.
Oh my God.
It's poison. It's awful.
Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, when one religion is actually showing other religions, oh, look, we don't have to be mean to everybody, I'm going to say, great, good job, buddy. It's like the preschoolers learning that they don't have to poke each other in the eye. And one of them's like, look, I didn't poke him in the eye. Okay, good job, buddy. I'm real proud of you. We got to take baby steps, apparently. So I will applaud every baby step we can get. Okay, so we also had Lydia call into us.
Yes.
She had a question pertaining to, I believe, the social media.
Hey, Frank and Dan. My name is Lydia, and I'm a recent listener, so I apologize if you've actually already talked about this topic before. But I recently came across this guy, and his name is Stuart, and the last name is Knechtle, I think it's pronounced. It's Knechtle. And he has been creating these videos on TikTok, and he has like almost 500,000 views, or excuse me, 500,000 subscribers. And they're really obscure videos about him talking about Christianity, but he tries to talk about it in like a psychological kind of philosophy way. And for me, it's just super annoying. But I was curious to know if you guys have ever come across him and had any feedback. Thanks again.
Well, first of all, that is not a real last name. Knechtle is not a real last name, and I dismiss him out of hand just based on that alone. But second, I did go and look up one video. It wasn't a TikTok video. I do listen to the TikToks, but I don't want my algorithm to think that it should start showing me that shit. So I looked up something that he did on YouTube, and it was the standard. It was he's talking to a crowd of students, and somebody says something about, basically it cuts in right after some student has declared that they don't want to live forever because this world sucks, and he gives this whole apologetic about like, I'm with you, I get it, like, we here in this life we've got these, we've got broken psychologies and we've got broken relationships, and there's all these natural disasters that happen, and who would want to live in that? But in heaven, in Jesus Christ's beautiful pretty heaven, we're perfect psychology, we got perfect relationships, blah blah blah. So I really think you'd probably want to live forever if that were the case, wouldn't you? And he's like making it all obvious, and meanwhile I'm shaking my head like, no, you have literally just described nothing. You've told me nothing,
Dan. It's perfect.
Yeah, boy, that sounds real fun. Just sitting around being perfect for eternity.
It sounds awful.
I feel like every day you just turn to the guy next to you and be like, still perfect? Yep. Okay. Me too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like, as soon as you, like, if you grew up religious and believing in, an afterlife, Like, I remember, like, being like, oh, that's like, oh, there's no God. Yeah. Like, I totally got to that place. But then you start figuring out a lot of the consequences, right?
Right.
Of coming to that realization. And one of those consequences was, oh, no afterlife. Oh, that's kind of a bummer, right?
Yeah.
But then once you kind of get your head out of it and you live a while and you just don't have that anymore, and you get comfortable with the idea of like, yeah, I'm going to just die. I'm just going to, just going to stop being, right?
Yeah.
And you get good with that. Then all of a sudden the idea of an afterlife sounds horrible.
Well, it's
right?
just
It just like, especially like an eternal afterlife. Like, I guess if there was one where you could like go and hang around for another 70 years, maybe. Oh, maybe. But like, and I know I keep referencing this show on our show a lot, which is the Good Place,
right?
That was on like ABC or something, and it was such a cute little show about the afterlife,
Right.
And one of the things that they just nailed was the idea of like that eternity would be horrifying.
That
after
the
a while.
concept doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you play it out to its natural conclusion in any direction,
yeah, you're going
the concept doesn't work.
Yeah, you're going to have done everything you wanted 1,000 times over. Everything's going to become boring. There's going to be nothing new, nothing interesting. It's just going to turn into this horrible gray, just, melee.
Yeah. I mean, you and I were talking about at least Mormon afterlife, you have a job.
Yeah, that's true.
At least in the Mormon afterlife, if you reach like their highest exaltation,
yeah,
then at least you create something,
right?
Provided you're a male.
Yeah.
If you're a woman,
you just
all bets
give
are off.
birth for eternity.
You're vacuuming heaven. But like if you're a man,
no, she's giving birth to spirit babies.
Do you think that Mormons imagine that that's like a vaginal process? That like they're giving birth to the billions and billions of spirit babies?
I have no idea what they think. I think they probably
do with her womb in some way.
Her spirit womb. Giving birth to spirit babies.
Yeah, just
it's
anytime
every Mormon
has...
woman's dream. Just babies, 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 babies.
Yeah, if you ever want to short circuit a believer, just ask them to describe heaven and keep pressing and keep pressing. Okay, but what do you do then? Okay, but what do you do then?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. The answer will very quickly become, I don't know. It's just going to be good. Trust me.
It's like, well, you got to try harder than that, man.
Yeah. So do we have anybody to thank?
Oh, Dan, of course we do.
Whew.
We have 2 new patrons on Patreon. We have a new elder, Dan.
Oh, an elder.
And
they crossed they're above the line into the Melchizedek priesthood. That's a little film talk for you, and above the line.
Here's their name.
Okay.
Long-time listener, but finally finished my PhD and can finally contribute until the government wants their money back, at least. Okay.
Well, congratulations,
Thank you
Doc.
Congratulations. And then we have a new prophet, seer, and revelator.
What?
Jephthahs?
Okay.
That's how I'm going to say it. Jephthahs.
Well, that
Jephthah's
is...
daughter, is what it says.
Oh, okay.
Does that make any sense to you?
Obviously, but I'm not going to tell you. It makes total sense. I know exactly who Jephthah's daughter
and I have
is.
no idea. But thank you so
probably
much
a scriptural
and welcome.
reference.
Praise.
Yeah, hey, amazing. Thank you guys so much for your generosity.
And if you, dear listener, would like to join them in supporting the show, you can go to thankgodimatheist.com and click on the support tab. And as always, we have our top donor to thank, our Lord and Savior, Austin. Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
Roe v. Wade in the crosshairs.
Here's the thing.
Has been
it's
for
been
a
in
while.
the crosshairs since the 80s. Roe v. Wade was relatively uncontroversial when it happened in the 70s. But then, in the 80s, a bunch of Christian douchebags realized that abortion could be a really great wedge issue to get dum-dums fired up about. So even though the evangelical Christians had never really cared about the issue much at all, they hadn't said much about it at all until that point, they started to rev them up on the point.
Killing babies.
Killing babies!
Who would kill babies, Dan?
It is decidedly not killing babies, but that's okay. And even if it were, the whole point has been that you can't force a person to sacrifice their own bodily autonomy for the sake of another human being. You can't force Frank to give up his kidney even though you're a perfect match and it would save your life. And you can't force a woman to carry a baby that she doesn't want to carry. That's the concept. That's the idea, but not to them because because it's killing babies and it makes Jesus cry every single time.
Well, and she's the one who, got herself knocked up.
Oh, well, and that's the real point, isn't it? Mm-hmm. The abortion, the concept here isn't we hate abortion. That's what they say it is. But if you drill down far enough, you're going to get to the place where they're like, well, you got to punish the people for having sex. They can't just have sex with no consequences, which is A, outstandingly crazy, and B, they don't even recognize you're saying that having a baby is a punishment and a good one. You're saying that is an appropriate punishment that someone should raise a child that they don't want.
Do they actually say that? They say punishment? Or do they work with consequences?
Yeah, they say that. They say you have to deal with the consequences of your action. But what does that mean? It means... Okay. Anywho, what has happened is, for over the past many years, since the 90s, and even back into the 80s, but mostly since the 90s, they have been working really, 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 really hard to find ways to stack the courts. We've talked about this, Project Blitz. It's why Frank and I have talked ad nauseum about us getting involved in politics all over the world. Atheists need to step up. We're still pushing that. But they wanted to overthrow Roe v. Wade. The decision by the Supreme Court in 1970, I think it was 73. It was a decision that basically said that, women can have abortions, period. Right. You can't outlaw abortion. Well, now, basically, in all of the conservative states, they've just gone on a constant spree trying to winnow down the ways in which women can get abortions, the places where they can get abortions. They've been trying to just chip away at how many abortions can happen, where they can happen, when they can happen, blah, blah, blah.
And if they can't do that, then they make you watch a video, or they make you,
they punish
hear the heartbeat or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Basically, they try and make it as unpleasant as they can. They try to make it as much of a punishment for women as they can. Anyway, the latest one is a law from Mississippi banning abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Traditionally, the line has been drawn at 20 in this country. So that would mean that, because 20 is considered sort of the point of viability, right? When a fetus could live viably outside of the mother's womb. 15 is definitely not viable, I think. I'm not a scientist, but my understanding is that 15 weeks is definitely not viable. And so that is why this law has gone to court. And unfortunately, it is now going to the Supreme Court. That would have been a good thing at any time up until now. Yeah. But since Donald Trump stacked the Supreme Court They now have a 6-3 crazy conservative majority, and most of those people do not care about the Constitution of our country or the law. If it bumps up at all against religion, religion wins.
Right.
They've showed us this in a number of decisions already, and now that they've added Amy Coney Barrett, who is basically just the Lord's own mouthpiece on the bench, I don't hold out much hope.
Yeah, I know.
As a matter of fact, there was an interesting thing where Robert Jeffress, who's the pastor in Texas, and has been a big time mouthpiece for he goes on Fox News all the time. He's a big pundit now. He's got a whole punditry thing going on. He went on to Fox News and was talking about this and basically said the quiet part out loud, which was that Trump fulfilled his promise to get a bunch of conservative judges on the court, and now it's time for those judges to uphold, this is a quote from him, their part of the deal.
Jesus Christ.
A quid pro quo, you can be he basically said you can be, the deal was that they could be a Supreme Court justice as long as they overthrow Roe v. Wade.
Well, it's coming.
So, yeah, and now the good news is that this or any of the lawsuits that are likely to get to the Supreme Court will not outlaw abortion in the United States of America. The bad news is that southern shitty states and other shitty states, including possibly our own in the future,
most definitely our own,
will work very, very hard to find ways to make it virtually impossible. And what that means is that this will impact the poor, the people who need it the most,
Right.
the people who are choosing not to have children because they know they can't afford children,
Right.
which is an awesome thing to do. It's exactly what we should be encouraging. Like, if you can't afford to have children,
it's
let me
being responsible.
support you in not having children.
Yeah, yeah. Or
It's
if you
the best
don't,
thing.
if simply you don't want children,
Yeah,
great, because you're probably not going to be the best parent.
exactly. Yeah, what we don't want is a bunch of people saddled with children and, in a life that causes them misery.
Yeah.
Because guess what? That's not the best environment for raising kids.
Yeah.
So yes, this will affect the poor. This will affect,
Because people with the means to will always just be able to go to a different jurisdiction.
Right.
Because
this will never stop a wealthy Republican from sending his daughter to wherever
exactly
to get her
Yeah.
an abortion.
Yeah.
But it may stop a person of color. This will disproportionately affect marginalized groups in our country.
Yeah.
And so they love that, actually. You hear the conservatives talk about abortion, and they will talk endlessly ad nauseum about how it's all black women getting getting abortions, blah, blah, blah. A talking point which is not based in reality, but sure is based in hate.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The fact of the matter is that I don't think that our side has done a good job we've rested on Roe v. Wade and we haven't done a good job articulating why their position is wrong. I feel like that's a problem in our country. Why we should all be supporting the right to an abortion. You don't have to support getting abortions. You don't have to be happy about it.
You don't have to be pro-abortion.
No.
You don't have to be like, let's do more abortions.
Right. You don't. I
Right.
personally am. I'm very pro-abortion myself. But it's fine to be against abortion for you and you alone. And it's fine for you to think that it's probably a bad thing. I think that's a viable, and you can even think that that it might be killing a person. But also, that bodily autonomy thing that I talked about earlier, I think nobody on the right has ever heard that. because we don't talk about it, and that messaging does not get through. It's just you're killing babies, you're killing babies, you're killing babies. And I think that's I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. Like, my body, my choice, right? Like, I feel like that's been around as long as, you know, people have been fighting for the right to an abortion, right?
Yeah,
but
I just think that's easily countered by, but what about the baby's body?
Right,
and then
right,
they think,
right. I know, but like,
you're not giving them a choice, Frank.
But I was about to agree with you that articulating it more in terms of, you know, bodily autonomy and whatnot would probably be a good direction to go, you know.
Yeah.
But I because personally, I don't know how my body, my choice isn't enough of an argument, right? Because like, okay, yeah, you win, right? But it's steeped already in like my stance there is already, you know, based in a belief that, you know, in body autonomy and whatnot. But
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's an unspoken part of the argument, my body, my choice, and that is bodily autonomy.
Right.
And that's and as long as that remains unspoken, then it can be countered with this concept of, well, you know, I believe that the baby has a body, and you're not giving that body a choice in this. So
Now,
what you have to say is, okay, but what we're talking about is, do I have an obligation to risk my life, because having an abortion is a lot safer than having a baby? Mm-hmm. Do I have an obligation to risk my life, to risk my body, to, you know, to put myself through, you know, an entire gestation period for a person that I don't, you know, for another person? And no, we like it. If you ask somebody who's very pro-life, do you think that we can obligate someone who is a perfect kidney match to risk their life to give up that kidney to someone else?
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice thing to do, but we can't obligate someone to do it. You can't force them to do it. If they don't want to do it, they have bodily autonomy. You can't make them give up a piece of their body or risk their own life to save someone else for the potential of saving someone else.
Personally, I wouldn't give them any ideas, right? Like, I don't trust those guys. And they clearly don't respect the idea of somebody having a right over their own body. That is clear, right?
That's true, because that body ain't yours. That's Jesus's body.
Right. But I mean, just think more broadly about, like, you know, their approach to people, right? And to individuals. They don't believe you have a right. Or they don't believe that you have rights to use your body the way that you want to. They would love it if gay sex were illegal again.
Right.
Right. Like, and that's not exactly body autonomy, but it's like doing things with you having a right as an entity to do things with other people or alone or whatever, right? That you, as long as you're not harming other people, you have a right to do it, right?
Yeah. What is it? Yeah.
And so, like, but they don't respect that, right? That's
true.
So, you know, forced kidney donation. Like, why wouldn't they? Right? Why wouldn't they love that idea? Like, I could see them getting on that.
They would love that idea for us. They would love to force us to donate our kidneys. But if you ask them about their own kidney, if you say, you know what,
fair enough.
We're going to force you to give your kidney. Hell no. We can't force them to put a mask on their face.
I know. Fucking hell.
Without them screaming that their liberties are being took away. So I think that could have some salient impact on them. Anyway, don't expect good things from the court, and realize that we have a fight on our hands in this country and around the world. All you international listeners, we pay attention. We know none of you are off the hook. Get out there. Get it. Look, the thing is that this is going to impact the elections coming up. Like, you know,
I know.
There's going the midterm elections that we're going to have in a year and a half. that's going to be impacted by this decision. The court's going to probably hear it in the fall, and then the decision will come out a few months later. We got to be ready. We got to be fighting. We got to be rolling.
We have to be fighting, and we have to show up. But this is, I don't know if they've played this totally great on the right to have the timing like this, because this is just going to rile the left up like mad. And as we know, when the left shows up, when the left actually votes, we are the majority in this country.
That's
right?
true.
And so we win elections, right, when we show up.
Well, the other thing is, if this goes the way that you and I anticipate it's going to go, what do they have to be all excited about?
Yeah, there goes the wedge issue. Yeah,
they got the teeth are out of the wedge issue. They might actually like just sort of take a break. So
yeah, they should never have tried to win so hard, right? Like
right. You don't win.
You don't
That's the worst thing you can do.
Get rid of your wedge issue, especially a good one like abortion.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you guys, I'm sure some of you have a lot to say about all of the things. So please feel free to write into us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Hey, go to the Facebook page, will you? Facebook.com/TGIAtheist. Click the like button. It doesn't hurt.
And if you'd like to join one of our 2 members-only lounges, we got one on Facebook, we got one on Discord. The best way to find both of them is to go to thankgodimatheist.com/members-only.
Yeah! Hey, thanks so much to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their fine music.
And thanks to Gordon Johnston for the use of his music.
And thanks to all of you kids for tuning in. We sure do appreciate you.
Bye-bye.